Marian.
Marian.
Está silenciado.
Hola, hola. Your microphone is silent.
¿Sí me escuchan? ¿Aló?
Sí, Marian, te escuchamos.
Ya, perfecto. Les comentaba que, bueno, ayer hicimos la primera avanzada.
Yesterday, we were recording information with people from Imbabura. Marian, in the sector of Coya, where we
está silenciado.
Hola, hola. Your microphone is police was there with guns, armed. And you know, Coya is a mountain area.
Sí, Marian, te
And
escuchamos.
police was located
Les comentaba
in
que,
an
bueno,
area
ayer hicimos la
of the
primera
mountain
avanzada.
where yesterday we were recording information with people. We have the report. See them. There are two injured in the sector of Coya where we.
Está silenciado.
Because
Hola,
of the bomb,
hola.
your microphone was police was there with guns, armed our colleagues. And you know, Coya is a mountain area.
Sí, Marian, te
And
escuchamos.
police was after located.
Les
There
comentaba
were
que,
an
bueno,
area
ayer
10
hicimos la
people
primera
mountain
avanzada.
where yesterday we were recording one of the information with we had the report. See them in the morning. They told us that they hit them.
Está silenciado.
Because
Hola,
of the bomb,
hola.
your microphone, and it rained, police was there, and they were obliged to stay armed or colleagues under the rain. And you know, Coya is a mountain area.
Sí,
One
Marian,
of
te
them
escuchamos.
died, and after that,
Les
they
comentaba
were
que,
trying
bueno,
to
ayer
retain
hicimos la
people
primera
from the
avanzada.
bombs and the oppression. We were five of them. One of them fell down. We had the report in the morning. They told us that they in the mountain.
Está silenciado.
Because
Hola,
of the bomb,
hola.
your microphone, and it rained.
Well,
they used it was there, and they were obliged to stay armed or colleagues under the rain. And you know, Coya is a mountain area. So
Sí, Marian,
people
te
had
escuchamos.
died, and after that,
Les
they
comentaba
were
que,
trying
bueno,
to
ayer
stay
hicimos
morning
la
with the
primera
people from the
avanzada.
bombs and the oppression. But the danger was one of them fell down. We had the so we decided to go down from the bridge. They told us that in the mountain
Está
for the
silenciado.
people
Hola,
of the bomb,
hola.
and it rained.
Well,
The people were going down, but
they
they were
were
obliged to stay there in the Coya region under the rain. You know, Coya is a mountain area. We know that the people are really violating the human rights, and we have people injured and bombs exploding in the faces and detentions of people who are being tortured, and the police are taking advantage to detain people. And the demonstration, which was trying to arrive to Quito, was totally peaceful, and at no moment there were violent signs from our side. That's what I can comment. The injured from a bomb in the head is a way that we are with a delegation from MINTAC, and they are telling us that there is an injured person in the head. That's what we can tell now from here. Thanks a lot, Mariam, for this information. This is really worrisome. The only thing which we can prove is that we live in a state of violence, especially when there is one person who has died already. With this information, we are starting this press release, and I want to talk about Commission of Human Rights with the violence in demonstration and the position of the Alliance during this protest. Good day. Do you listen to me? Well, good day to all the people who are expecting news from the Alliance of Human Rights and Nature Rights. We are here, as we said in October, when we said last October that we want to express to the national government that they need to guarantee and respect the human rights. And we mention in this case all the rights, because there are no rights that relate to any just one category, but to different categories. We are denouncing now the violence of the state, as the colleague told us in colleague, the people who are suffering there. But if this is not respected systematically and structurally, because of the poverty of the population and the degradation of the human livings, and because of the lack of basic services, the lack of job, because of the expense livelihood, because of the lack of respect and violation of territories, extractivist model, and territories that are being polluted and destroy the food sovereignty and the damn state government of Ecuador that do not give mechanisms of access to justice, mechanisms of access to the platforms for dialogue in the politics, and the people who do not have economic resources. The only thing they have is their dignity and their deep indignation. And they are saying, enough, this is enough. And we're here to demonstrate, we're going to resist, because this is not a way to live with dignity. We are with their voices. We urge the national government to give attention to the human rights, and this implies to know what is the true situation of people. It is not necessary to make the question about what are we going to do with the demonstration, but we need to question why the people are expressing here, what are they moving, why are they walking towards the capital of Ecuador, so that the government can hear what they want to say. We see that the state is not complying with us. What we need are rights respected. We need to say that the popular indigenous movement demands have not been complied. The first one, in relation to the price of the fuel, was one of the most important ones of the demands, among other demands in the general strike, general demonstration. And they are urgent to the national government to comply it. So this kind of demands have been during 12 months in front of the government table, and they have not complied it, because they are simulating dialogues, and they are making all this theater talking about a response toward us, but it's not real. For example, the mobilization of the army and the declaratory of a state of exception and requisition in the House of Culture of Ecuador are a proof that they are not listening to our requests, our demands. And the organizations that we are here together, we need to present our voices, our position about what is going on and what is happening. So we call the organizations, democratic organizations, to comply, to fulfill the actions, because the figures in the general demonstration are really worrisome, are alarming. The 79 detentions are not recorded. Other ones which are not yet identified, and there are not recordings of these detentions along many hours, because people are being frightened and they are being left in different sectors, in different areas. These are not being recorded because there are a lot of, there is a big number of these cases. We need to say that there are 5 people with ocular injuries. It's terrible to know what happened in the national strike. 2 people in a critical state. What happened last night needs to be reported and enlightened. We urge to the state a serious explanation about the abuse and violence by the side of the police and the Ecuadorian state. We are visiting different places, sites, and we are listening to the people. What do they need? And that's why we are here now today, just to urge to the state the non-impunity and to comply with the rights. The dialogue is not an option, it is an obligation, with a follow-up and fulfilling it is what we need. Thank you. Thanks, Vivian, for your participation. It is important to invite you to review the information that we are publishing permanently and updating in relation to the supervision of human rights in the general strike, and to continue checking the Twitter from our site, in Alliance of Human Rights. It is important what Marianne talked in the beginning. We're calling to the Red Cross, the United Nations, to make spaces available and to call the civil society so that we can do a supervision exercise, a permanent supervision to protect the lives of people who are in the demonstrations. We want to listen to Veronica Potes. She's a lawyer. She is part of the organizations of human rights, and she will speak about the state of exemption and the situation in general. Veronica. Thanks a lot, Paola. Good day, everyone. Good day, everybody. I want to talk about this topic, but in first place, I want to talk about what Vivian Hidrobo talked about. The right of protest it is a right. It's not a concession of nobody. And not from the authorities or from the rest of the society. It is the right that we have, all the people, to demand, to claim, especially when in this condition, the conditions are poor, when we and our well-being are threatened, and we take a risk, a dangerous risk. So any condition under which any Ecuadorian who knows the current reality, they can see we are not inventing precarious situations here, or that we are claiming for some fool people or crazy people. No, that's not true. We are talking about reality of the indigenous people, situations, and in general, the Ecuadorians. This is our situation, and this is the reason of the protests. We have the recognition of the protest. It is one of the actions that the people in general, the citizens, do and we carry out when we see that there is a situation that is affecting us. And in this point, I want to say that in the international right needs to recognize, the international law needs to recognize this, the freedom of expression and other measures that needs to be used, the union, the freedom of awareness and mobilization, and they need to be recognized as freedom of expression. For example, at 2 a.m. when we are at the feet of Pichincha volcano, when we are not really making any problem to other people, we are just complying with our right of expression. So we need to stop making as if we are fool when we are authorities and saying that the protests are necessary, and they are saying that we cannot protest during certain hours because we are disturbing people, other people. No, we recognize that we have faculties to do this. We need recognition. We say it is enough because we need to protest, and in a political community is where the decisions are made. That's why Quito cannot be under the state of this curfew hours state, because the decisions need to be taken here in the capital. Everything that is being done is illegal, and this is a violent response by the President Lasso within the state of exemption, which is illegal, because the only objective they have is to stop us from protest, from and there are no other objectives because of his actions, even because before the Constitutional Court decides about this state of emergency, which again needs to be well justified. The state of emergency is an exceptional measure, extraordinary, which gives the possibility to the authorities something horrible, which is to exclude the current system of law. So if we are worried, it's because of this, because it's a dangerous measure, and it is justified in situations which are really, truly extraordinary, and the authority is not responsible about facts. So for example, if tomorrow there is the eruption of Cotopaxi is an example, the authorities are not responsible of this. Yeah, in this case of emergency is something different. And what we need is an urgent reaction. So we need the army, yes, sure, we need them, all their logistics so they can help support people and victims, etc. For those kind of things, it is necessary they act. But in this case, is a different situation in which the government is not there because they took measurements and they said these things will happen in the state of emergency for a minimum state of well-being. But the only thing they did is to make things harder and creating more insecurity. What is happening is terrible because people cannot wait, because we have to stop and see what the president is doing towards our protests, our demands. So if I am in a situation as a citizen and I have to wait for a demand, I cannot say, oh yes, I have to protect myself from the people who are protesting, because they are just carrying out their right. And this is unconstitutional, and this is illegal. The state of emergency is just making that the protest is not possible to do. If they want to prevent the people come to the city to protest, to demand, and they have the right to be here. So they cannot stop people, they cannot prevent people to come to the capital and to close the capital, the city, to other people from other places of the country to demand. And yesterday it was terrible, the persecution, and we saw the leader, Leonidas Issa. Yesterday, they closed the House of Culture of Ecuador, telling the stupid, sorry for the expression, but it's a stupid justification. The police really do not need a House of the Culture to do their activities and their actions. What they need is a place, well, they need to go to their army places, because those are the places where they need to do their activities, not the House of the Culture. They don't need to go and do a raid in the House of the Culture just because they invent that there is bellic material and there are only books, microphones, theater rooms, what people do in culture activities. So what they did there, it was a tale. It was a story they created because that is the place where they see the people who are coming from different areas from the country, and they united there, and this meeting place from different areas from the country for the protests. And they are neighbors of this place in the House of Culture, and that is the police are there. They took it, and we could see yesterday that the police are getting in and getting out as any robber in the House of Culture. And they cannot say that police they go after robbers or thieves because they are doing the same thing that robbers and thieves do. This is what doing the state of emergency. Imagine what is going to happen tomorrow if this is legalized. We are pending, and the government is taking these actions without being legal yet. So if they say, okay, the entrance in the north of Guayabamba is closed, they are closes the entrance in the south, they close the entrance in Papayacta, which is the Amazon entrance. So they closed the possible entrances of the city, so the people cannot come to carry out their right for protesting when we are not well treated, when we are disrespected. So yesterday in the House of Culture, when the attorney, the state, or the general's office went there, and we see that they, in the House of Culture, they do not, they really cannot receive any justice system. So there is a stigmatization of the protest. Even before of the facts, there was the criminalization of the protest through prosecution and detentions. The people who are protesting are being detained, but they are detained, and then they are left in different sectors. So the president cannot say that they are people in the detained or in the jails, because they are taking for some kind of rights. But then they are doing this kind of things is to prevent that people concentrate there as traditionally have done before. And we are being taken as under actions which are called the precautionary measures. Thank you, Veronica Potes, for your participation. I want to complete that from the monitoring, we have seeing the different incidents and activities in Pichincha, Cotopaxi, Imbabura, Sucumbíos, and Santo Domingo provinces, where it's being violated, the right to protest, to life and integrity, the collective rights from the peoples and nationalities, indigenous peoples, are being violated. I have to announce that in the Hoya of the Sachas, there is one person who is injured without a hand, the left hand. She lost the left hand because of a bomb last night in La Parker area. All this information is alarming and is moving as it is an expression of the exercise of this the violence by the government, the state. The lawyer Jorge Estero will participate virtually. He's from Amazon Frontline. He's part of the Juridical Alliance of Human Rights. He will speak about state violence in this strike, in this demonstration. Good day, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to participate in this important press release. So as organizations of human rights can be present here, I just want to emphasize that the state violence is direct against the people in these demonstrations. In this case, it's important to remember the structural violence of the state that exists even before this demonstration at the national level. And it is because of the lack of compliance, of fulfillment of the most basic laws, as Veronica mentioned. So the social organizations, as we see, the state policies have not improved, but they are worsening the access to rights as health, education, work, jobs, and the indigenous peoples and their territories with extractivist policies which are affecting terribly to their territories and their lives. And this is the lack of compliance of their government plan and the structural violence by the state and dialogues with no good results with the CONAI are the proof of their violence, the structural violence, where the power do not listen and they do not have volunteer for finding solutions. From the criteria of this alliance, we can show that it's not legal, and other organizations and sectors such as CONAI and others are talking about this in the protest about the 10 points that are claiming. So the speeches which are of stigmatization and in relation to the social protests and indigenous people by the state is really worrisome, because this form of protest is the essential column for any democratic regime. And this is shown through speeches by the government that you know, and especially worrisome. They are serious speeches when they say that the CONAI demonstration is a scenario of focalized people independently located with no importance. That is terrible, because the minister, Patricio Carrillo, who said publicly in the social networks that they will be intimidating the population. Among them, June 11, before the national strike, the minister affirmed that this demonstration is just an act of a previous act of violence by if the society was creating this instability. So bringing this idea of criminalization, I want to remember that June 10, before starting the national demonstration, in Orellana, when the Attorney General's office, they started talking in relation to Quechua in Orellana. They really created an atmosphere of criminalization towards the people who need to carry out their right. They do not listen the commitment in relation to the 10 points they are presenting as their agenda for the demonstration, and trying to prevent a social confrontation. But this is the lack of volunteer of a dialogue and the search of solutions of these critical problems in the country. As Paola mentioned here, we recorded as an alliance that state violence is not only structural, but there are critical attacks, serious attacks to the collectivity and the personal security, safety of people. I want to say that in this activities for monitoring, among the 79 people who are detained, we want to say that some of them have been have received sanctions with prosecutions, like the president of CONAI that says that saying that there are people who are, if there are not people in jail, there are people with under the situation of precautionary measures. So many of these people are detained and then they leave them free without informing anything to the authority. This happened in Quito, Negalito, Guaman, Tambillo, Cotopaxi. And this practice, which is absolutely unconstitutional, it goes together with the threatening and frightening to the people who are detained. We have seen that there are no proofs of any kind towards the people that had been psychologically mistreated, and the people who have been battered, and people who are injured, and people who are even are dying now. We see that there are affected people who are injured in their faces, in their sight, in Sucumbíos, Cotopaxi, Chimborazo, in Riobamba. There were people with serious injuries. In one only act of repression, 2 guys who were thrown to the fields, and with no safety, like in the case of Buenos Aires, in Babura, we see 39
recording in progress.
Records of repression in the social network. We see the arbitrary violence towards journalists and people who are working in the streets, attacking children, young students in Colegio Mejia, Saquicilí, elders who are being hit and attacked, women, lawyers, women. In these situations, we have recorded the use of gas, towards the bombs that are being thrown towards the bodies and faces, the tear gas and pepper gas, and also cars from the police and motorcycles from the police carrying out violent actions. And for example, using other instruments like shots or gun shot, and rubber shots. This have been used in the social demands, and it is a very serious and progressive increase of the violence to repress the demands which are legitimate, and they are using the army unconstitutionally to repress. Like last night, as the colleagues already told us, towards the people, organizations and peoples that are trying to arrive to Quito, to enter here so they can work together in the national strike. Thank you. That's what I can say now.
Muchas gracias por el análisis y las...
Thank you for the figures and the analysis. I also would like to mention that these efforts for supervising the vulneration, violation of the human rights that the Alliance carries out since 2020, together with other organizations that we record these actions, because we have witnesses which are suffering the violations. And there is the clear role of the organizations of human rights to document, to register, to record this. So it's important to talk about the implications of this emergency decree. The state is obligated to make this transparent, to document this. The social organizations will do our efforts, but it's not our obligation. It's the state who has to make this transparent, to facilitate the access to this information and data. This is part of our supervision work. And until now, we want to give the floor to Elsie Monge, so it's part of CEDU and is part of the Alliance, and she will speak about the urgency of making transparent the information and the role of the international community. Well, I think that it was made transparent, the situation that is affecting seriously our people and the people who are protesting in the demonstration to claim their voices and to claim their rights. With this background from the Alliance of Human Rights, we urge to the government Lasso government, the derogatory of Decree 455 in June 2022, when he talks about a state of emergency of Cotopaxi, Imbura, and Pichincha, and that are protesting with the 10 points in their agenda, and also for the struggle that motivates the national demonstration. This struggle needs to be confronted in the time of the activities or actions, because usually there is no dialogue and then are not concrete responses. So we urge more facts and less words. Also, to stop these actions of criminalization and use of violence against people who are in the demonstration and in resistance. To the General Assembly of Ecuador as mechanisms of political control of the juridical order of the actions of the executive power. We want to control the decree, executive decree 455 and remove it. To the Constitutional Court of Ecuador as a mechanism of constitutional control to declare the inconstitutionality of the decree 455 in action, to establish a clear jurisprudence for the use of the repression they are doing in terms of the human rights internationally, and to take actions in this way. And what's happening in the House of the Culture, we know it is illegal, it is illegitimate. And in their surroundings, they are putting in danger the cultural heritage in an illegitimate and arbitrary action. And it is not necessary to do this kind of things. On contrary, it is increasing the social discontent. And we want to guarantee the state of emergency, the access to justice, with constitutional guarantees to support the people who work in terms of justice. It cannot be restricted in any case. In a particular case, we call the Commission, Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, to bring information to the state about the facts that are happening in the national strike or the national demonstration, especially in 2019. It already happened. So we want to call the supervision and avoid manipulation and stigmatization to the legitimate right to demonstrate, to protest, and the protection to the people who can be exposed and vulnerated, violating their rights. We count on your solidarity. Thanks a lot, Elsie, and we want to repeat that we call to the organizations of human rights, organizations of the civil society, social media, to visualize all the violation of the rights that are being committed in the demonstration, and some of the results of the supervision by allied organizations that are supervising the repression topics. In the documents, the records, we are talking to events of extreme aggression, 34 serious aggressions, 9 moderate aggressions, and others which are very serious. We're inviting you to follow our social networks and the networks of our alliance and human rights. We want to close this press release, and we want to open the participation and comments or questions. People who are here present in the chat, I understand they are virtually connected. So you have the space for it.
Estamos ahorita en la rueda de prensa de la alianza.
Ayer, bueno, que todavía no nos reciben por lo que sucedió en la Casa de la Cultura.
In relation to what happened in the House of the Culture, I would like to hear more other facts. Well, the House of the Culture and their representatives will have to analyze the next steps to be taken. As organizations of human rights, we need to make possible that these measures can be, the precautionary measures can be solved, because in this country there needs to be other kind of actions. There needs to be agility to solve and act towards actions of people. And we have an extreme lack of hearing to the actions of the organizations of human rights against particular people. And we were not allowed last night in the House of the Culture to present our precautionary measures. And it's important to see what we will do now, because the state of law do not let to put these laws in action. So we need to see how we can activate other kind of actions internationally and nationally speaking. There is other thing. Yesterday, when we were with a flagrant action, the policeman was there in front of the door. We could not pass. They said that they were in an audience when there was a a giant screen did not show any kind of audience going on. So it was a lie. So they said, no, they have to update the screen. So in second place, when we were demanding to other policemen, he changed the version and he said that no, what was happening is that we are in a state of emergency, so the digital system is not working. This is the way we are being treated in the state of emergency, because that is what the state of emergency is creating. We are not safe, it's dangerous. All of us, we are at risk. And this serves for this kind of things, for a policeman that is in front of a door where we're going to take a document and we are demanding justice. And the policeman says that in state of emergency, we don't have digital system and we have to sleep until the digital system has to start working again. This is what happens in state of emergency. There are legal actions that we can carry out, and this is a call to the universities. They are closing their doors and they are making as they don't have to do anything with us, but they need to participate and support the people. The capital of the country needs to be open to all the protests and demonstration. We call to the University Central of Ecuador, is a public university where I work. I need to call them to reopen the doors, and it's a humanitarian act, and also a way to facilitate the people in this country can carry out their rights. And also to the University Andina, who closed the doors of their own citizens, students, and functionaries, who closed the doors egoistically to people who are such as people like elders, children, because it's a popular demonstration. And the Salesiana Universidad Salesiana, we wanted to call them and to listen what is their position. We want to call all the people in Ecuador to support the national demonstration.
Susana. Hola.
Hi, Susana. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hola. Buenos días. Por favor,
Good
hubo
day.
problemas al inicio de la transmisión.
At the beginning of the transmission, when you were talking about somebody who died, please could you repeat what is the state of the other people? Because
fallecido o fueron 6 las que cayeron y una falleció. Y también al ser organismos de derechos humanos quisiera saber
talk about the people who have been injured and who have died, and what is the situation with the police. The Ministro Carrillo said that there were 61 policemen who have been injured. Please answer these questions. Thank you, Suzanne. I want to tell you that the fact happened. I just lost the audio. I think she silenced her microphone. Okay, now the audio is talking. There were people vomiting blood because of the pepper gas. And this young man who died tried to escape from shots from the police. This is very serious. The systematic violence of the state continues growing if there is no direct dialogue with the society about policemen who are hurt. I just want to say that their integrity and their life is responsibility of the state. And it is responsibility of the state as well to confront the people against the people. The population against the population. This is a structural violence. It's not the only kind of violence, evidently, as we verified in the national demonstration, the state violence through repression of as the national police or the army are carrying out actions, violent actions, are generating more violence. And in this case, all these vulnerations of rights are responsibility of the state, because we arrived to this point, to the serious point. So we urge the state guarantee for their lives as well, and the guarantee of their well-being is also not to expose them to this situation for repressing the constitutional law as a social demonstration is doing, is happening. So this is responsibility of the state. Do you know if there are demands of the police and army in relation to the mining activities? And do you know if there are some actions that they are taking, the enterprises in relation to the demonstration, the mining companies? What are they doing? Well, I don't know if the last question was not heard because we lost the audio in the beginning. I will repeat. and she's repeating about the policemen. It is responsibility of the national state to protect the people who work in the police, in the army, and there are people who are injured. The people from the police who is responsibility of the state because they are exposing them to this situation where the population is confronted with the same population in a disproportional situation because it's different to demonstrate with sticks against bombs, shots, gas, different kind of arms they have. So this means to stop repression because the people are carrying out a constitutional right recognized in an article of the Constitution of the Human Rights. And as Veronica said, even though it wouldn't be recognized, it is part of the human beings. It's natural to protest against what you cannot stand anymore, what is not possible to support. So I will give the microphone to my colleague to answer the first question. Well, now it was a repression very strong in Guayabamba. I would like you to listen the audio of one of the persons who was injured. I hope it can be listened because it is an interesting audio. I don't think I can get it here to translate it. It is difficult.
Pues, me detuvieron más o menos hacia las 10:30 de la noche.
It is almost 10:30, 11 p.m. And two police or guys from the army detained us. The audio is bad. The people who were detained, we were 6 people, and they put it in the middle of the street and they're doing. Well, it seems like the audio is not very good, but what he's saying, in summary, they were hit, they were victims of a brutal aggression in the Coya area, and that is part of what Veronica was mentioning about the fact that they are not allowing to people to enter in Ecuador. 5 people fell down in the gully, and one of them died. And there were 7 people who were detained and tortured, and they were liberated. They were released. This is the modus operandi of the policemen. They detain them, they take them, they torture them, they threaten them, and after that they release them. There were shots and impacts of bombs, tear bombs in the face of people. There were people vomiting blood because of the pepper gas, and one of the guys who was trying to speak now in the person is one of who received a tear gas bomb and is seriously injured now. About the questions of Mining Watch, we have a report in the document violation of rights. We say the army, the policemen did actions against workers or the company, which created a conflict along some years about unconstitutional activities and operations without consultation in their territory. So the state of emergency and the army and police, what have done is precisely acting against the workers and against the population who are injured in Buenos Aires area. More questions? In the revista Mutancia, I would like to know about people who were detained and taken in the police cars. We know that they have been threatening to the demonstrators and the people who were threatened. They said that they will be killed. What do we know about this kind of threatening? Thank you. I want to give the floor to Jorge to answer this question, please. Well, briefly, is what we said previously. From our organizations, there is an echo. Okay, we saw that there is a practice of the police that they do detention of people and they threaten people and they do aggressive actions towards them. It's not one or two people who they do it, but it's unconstitutional. It is considered very common now, and it's a practice that needs to be presented and announced. We see that people are seriously threatened, and they are even obliged to call to their families, to their relatives, to tell them that they are in that situation and they will be released, but nobody denounced it. So in reality, they are obliged to warn them, and that is juridically in a judicial way. This is serious. Even with people who were walking in the streets and they were not protesting, they had been threatened and they had been frightened with this kind of practices, with physical and psychological violence actions, is to impose the silence in face to this illegitimate repression, unconstitutional. So they stop doing what they're doing, demonstrating, protesting. So this we have seen in previous protests, but this is really, now it is really considered something usual. They are trying to do this to avoid the people to carry out their right of protesting. And in the cases we have recorded, we see that those people are released several hours later in different areas of the city, in UPCs from the police or judicial areas, other areas, and but we have not confirmed any permanent disappearance of any people. We have other question, if they know where are the people who fell down in the gully? Well, the data in our record of supervision, we confirm and we know the identity of the people who fell down in the gully. It was in Cutuglawa. We talked with the people of their communities, and we know the circumstances of their situation there in a hospital of that city. And until yesterday afternoon, they were in that place. It's important to mention this in this operation in the police operation. There were 20 people who were detained or arrested, and then 10 of them were arrested and they're or detained, and they were under the prosecutors' responsibility, and other people, young people, like minors and women who were released, but were also detained, and they were hit. And the prosecutors did not say anything. These people were assaulted, and they were in the same, these people I'm talking about, they were in the same context that the guys who fell in the gully were present. I just wanted to mention this. Thank you, Vivian. And finally, we are requested to make clear what is happening in relation to the Alliance of Human Rights and the detained people. Well, what we are proposing is to take this to the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights that was here in 2019. And we are urging them to demand information, documented information, to the Ecuadorian government so that they can prevent that this painful situation continue aggravating and can take the lives of our population. A recommendation of the commission happened in October 2019, but was ignored widely by the state and the current government of Lasso, and are the measures that can be used and should be used to prevent this serious state where people are exposing their integrity and lives just because they are protesting. This is a very technical tool, this evaluation of impacts to the environment, economy, social, society, collective rights, natural rights, especially the measures that are ambivalent and questioning measures. This is a preventive measure. It's a prevention measure. And if the governments know they will impact, in the case of 2019, it was evident that rise, the subsidies is a popular measure since we know what are the effects. If they know exactly what are the effects of these measures, we really need to take other measures to change this. It has to be done previously, so we did not get to this point, and that is not done, and that is not recognized. They are just asking how many people died, how many people are injured, how many people were detained, etc. And we don't have a way to speak why we had to get to this point where there are people in this society that cannot protest, that entrenched. And what is the question, the main question of the human rights that says that we have to do previous analysis, deep analysis, to see how the measures are impacting to the different rights, etc., so that we do not get to this critical point. Thank you.
Queremos denunciar que nos acaban de llamar de los compañeros que se encuentran en la ruta Collas y nos dicen
in relation to the colleagues that are in college, they say that they are continue being persecuted by a bus of policemen, and they are persecuted and they are frightened. They don't want the actions that happened last night continue to happen. In this moment of when the media are informing They're talking about people who do not have arms, the gangs. They are not part of delinquency, and they want to demand in the capital the fulfillment of their rights and what the Ecuadorian state is doing. They are persecuting them with the police to these people who come to carry out their exercise. They carry out their exercise of their rights. And this is our request to the people. We urge this to the state to protect these people who are demanding their rights fulfillment. Thank you for your questions. I want to thank everybody for your presence, to the media who have been here together with us. And this press release is a pronouncement by the Alliance. There are images of high quality of the facts that are happening along these days, and we want you to connect in relation to the maps of violation of rights and the map where are being documented, recorded all the activities of the repression in this demonstration. We also have another audio that I hope we can share from Gabriela Aguinaga from Cuellaje Intag. We want to denounce that one of our colleagues from Intag that were together with the Northwest demonstration colleagues. 2 days ago, when the policemen came here to retire, put them away from this space, they hit one of our colleagues and took him to one side of the people where the people was, were there, and then they hit them and they took him to the UPC, to the police office, without questioning anything, without doing anything legal. Then they released him. During all that time, there was not any agreement in relation to the detention the policemen they did, and they were hitting him. They were
y conocían quién es uno de nuestros compañeros que estaba ese día ahí. Lo arrastran por el piso.
They were crushing his throat,
rostro, el oído, y mantienen, como les digo, su garganta constantemente.
His throat permanently. I lost the audio. And now I recovered it.
Hizo con los pies. Se lo llevó al hospital y en el hospital pues se encontraron.
Okay, so they took him to the hospital, is what I can hear now. We're losing the audio, sorry. We have a technical problem with this audio, but it tells us the evidence of the exercise of the state violence. That is the axis of this press release. Thanks for being together with us. Let's continue connected permanently. We will be updating these painful actions of repression in the context of the demonstration. Thank you.